My dear friends, this weekend we celebrate the feast of the presentation of the Lord. In other words, we commemorate how the child Jesus was presented to God in the temple in Jerusalem, according to the custom of the Jews. The feast of presentation is celebrated 40 days after Christmas. In the Mosaic law, a woman was expected to undergo a form of purification after childbirth and to present the firstborn male child to God in the temple, which was understood as buying back the child from God. Moreover, the family was expected to offer sacrifice to God during their presentation. This is what Mary and Joseph performed for the child Jesus. Now, today's feast does not emphasize Mary's purification as it does Jesus' first appearance in the temple. And the ultimate meaning of this appearance is seen in the mystery of Christ's passion, death, and resurrection. The feast of the presentation is also known as Candlemas because of the tradition of blessing and holding a candlelight procession on this day. My dear friends, the event of the presentation of Christ presents a deep significance when we understand the transformative presence of Christ in the temple. Christ, whom John the Baptist describes as having to increase while he, John, decreases, enters the temple for the first time. Simeon and Anna, two elderly people, notice and recognize a special presence. Their song of joy reveals a feeling of fulfillment that they were opportune to see the revelation of the Messiah of Israel for whom they had waited so long. Now, our first reading from the book of Prophet Malachi offers us a deep insight to the state of the temple before Christ. The book of Malachi is addressed to a post-exilic Jerusalem after the rebuilding of the temple. The messenger seems to address a priestly audience that has abused the power and sanctity of the pre-exilic temple ritual by showing lack of reverence in their current observance of the temple rituals. Malachi's proclamation in our reading today from Malachi chapter 3, verse 1 to 4, brings with it both a promise and a word of warning. The Lord who the people seek will suddenly come to his temple. Behold, he is coming to purify it. He is like a refiner's fire. Thus Malachi envisions a renewal of the temple and its priesthood. He prophesies that the coming of the Lord will restore the priestly office to its historic holiness, where the sacrifice of Judah and Jerusalem will please the Lord. Now, this prophecy finds fulfillment as Christ enters into the ancient temple. His entrance establishes him as the new temple and the new high priest. It is in this sense that the Feast of Presentation celebrates the meeting point of the two testaments, the Old and the New. Simeon and Anna witnessed this encounter of the Old and New Testament and understood it for what it was, as we read today in the Gospel of St. Luke chapter 2. Thus the aged Simeon goes up to Mary and Joseph. He took the child into his arms and blessed God, saying, "Now, Master, you may let your servants go in peace according to your word, for my eyes have seen your salvation, which you prepared in the sight of the peoples, a light for revelation to the Gentiles, and glory for your people Israel." Notice that the ordinariness of the child Jesus, who is brought to the temple, perhaps side by side with other children, did not blur the vision, faith, and insight of Simeon and Anna. They did not miss the long-expected Messiah. Three things to which Simeon alludes describes the mission of Jesus: salvation prepared in the sight of his people, a light of revelation to the Gentiles, and the glory of Israel. Thus, in the ordinariness of the child, the fulfillment of God's promise is revealed not only to Israel, but to all nations. He is the fulfillment of the light that will dispel the darkness of the world. It is the understanding of Jesus' mission in this way as the new temple, new priest, and the firstborn of salvation that makes his incarnation necessary. Moreover, this nuance is made clearer in our second reading from the letter to the Hebrews, chapter 2. By his earthly life of perfect obedience unto death, Jesus opened salvation to all people. He thus becomes both the spotless sacrifice and sinless priest of the temple. In other words, what people did or sought for when they went to the temple is now found in him, namely forgiveness, sacrifice, and worship. And only through him can we make an acceptable worship to God. My dear friends, on this feast, Christ is revealed to Simeon and Anna as the new temple, the light of God that burns brightly, from whom salvation comes to all nations. Hence, we are invited to recognize Christ for who he is in our life and to unite ourselves with him in his offering to the Father. To do this, we need to continuously present ourselves so that he will refine and sanctify us. Did you know that every time you participate in the celebration of the Eucharist, you present yourself to Christ to renew you in his love? I have always analogously think of the Eucharistic celebration as a gas station where we are refilled to enable us to stay strong in the journey of faith and life. Personal devotion to prayer and acts of service are other ways we can present ourselves to God and recognize God who is present in other people. Simeon and Anna were devoted to a life of prayer, and as a result, they were able to recognize and receive the light of the world in spite of the chaos in the temple. Finally, dear friends, in 1997, Pope John Paul II instituted this feast day as the day of prayer for women and men in consecrated life. I urge you today, therefore, to offer prayers for consecrated men and women. In the words of Pope Francis, consecrated life is born and reborn of an encounter with Jesus as he is. And while worldly life soon leaves our hands and hearts empty, life in Jesus fills us with peace to the very end. May God bless you.